I just finished watching Spiderhead on Netflix, and I have such big qualms with this film that I dropped everything I was doing to write a script and set up and film this video. Quick disclaimer, this video is basically going to be filled with spoilers because I am mostly going to be talking about the last 15 minutes of the film. Spiderhead is about a prison alternative facility for inmates in which they have a better environment but are subject to drug testing. We follow Jeff, who was drunk driving and killed both his best friend and his girlfriend. He's been at the facility for quite a while and knows Steve, the manager of the facility, pretty well. Steve and Mark both work for the company creating and administering the drugs and are passionate about helping people with the drugs they're working on, right? At this point, I was very invested in this film. Some of the testing sequences are done really well, and I like some of the interesting and kind of humorous different drugs they have. In 40, also known as Lovactin, this drug makes people love with such a desire that it doesn't matter who they're in a room with, they can't control themselves and end up just fucking. G46, also known as Laffadil, is basically weed, but it's still funny to see Steve and Jeff both take it and laugh their asses off.
I'm laughing too.
B15, also known as Verbaluse, is basically a truth serum. It basically makes people not only honest, but they also have an extreme desire to let out that honesty.
Divorced her from joy and caused her unspeakable sadness.
Then we have I16, known as DARKENFLOXX. This is definitely the coolest drug conceptually. It basically makes people Hulk out without physically hulking out, just makes them insanely angry for no reason. I think we can all agree there's some really cool stuff you could do in a film with that drug. Spoiler alert, Spiderhead does not really do anything cool with that drug. I27, or Phobica, is a pretty fun one. It makes the user scared of the most insignificant things, like this stapler. And then we have B6, known as OBDX. This is the main drug that is actually being tested by Steve, but it's being administered without prior knowledge. B6's goal is complete obedience.
B6 had to be perfect.
Cheesy drug names aside, the movie started really good, I thought. Yeah, sure, the writing isn't the best, the cinematography isn't anything to write home about. You know, the main plot outside of the actual drug testing is super lackluster, but I was still pretty invested. I was also very excited at this point for more and more of the drug testing scenes because that was easily the most engaging part of this film, and I was so curious as to different tests they could do. What happens if you administer more than one of these drugs in different doses at the same time? What happens? What kind of failures did you go through to get the drugs to the point they are now? More backstory and just interesting, quirks about these drugs. I couldn't wait. And they didn't do freaking any of that. As soon as the main plot was revealed, we didn't get a single other drug testing scene at all from that point forward. What is the main plot point, you ask? Jeff discovers that Steve is actually the owner of the company and figures out that Steve is actually testing B6 and not the other less Batman villain feeling drugs. Oh, and by the way, this discovery is made because Steve has a sticky note with his own name on it as the name of the company. And inside his notebook is also a bingo card with the names of the drugs marked off. Steve was going for the full blackout board, man. Jeff then tells the assistant, Mark, about Steve's real motives, and Mark is immediately on board? Even though Mark would definitely also be getting a dose of B6? I'm still on board at this point. I like the plot, I like where they're going, and I can see a very dim demise for our pal Steve. Jeff gets put into a test where he must administer Lizzie, the love interest, with DARKENFLOXX.
The answer's still no.
What Steve doesn't know is that Mark hooked Jeff up with a smartphone that is controlling Steve's little drug pack. Oh yeah, the drugs are all administered through these little tiny packs on everybody's backs, and those packs are controlled by an app. This scene is actually pretty solid. Jeff gives Steve different doses of several of the different drugs, and we see Steve suffer like we assume everyone else has. Would have been cool to see more of that, right? Them suffering on the crazy ass drugs in this movie? No? Okay. And this is the turning point where my rating went quickly from an 8 to like a 3 to a 4. Jeff and Lizzie start trying to escape the facility and get the news out that Steve is not only corrupt, but there is also blood on his hands from doing these tests. Steve jumps on the PA and tells everyone that Jeff and Lizzie are gonna ruin this great opportunity and everyone will return to regular prison. And since they're on B6, they listen and start going after Jeff and Lizzie. Jeff and Lizzie are taking down these different prisoners like they're all level 1 NPCs. This scene is so freaking weird, not to mention the terrible music choice with this like weird glitch in Steve's phone where it's like glitching between the app to administer drugs and then back to like Apple Music, and then it like skips and plays this. What I want, So at this point, they're trying to do like a Shaun of the Dead type Queen scene, I guess. But the things that are happening are this. It just does not work, and none of it is exciting. Their only real attempt at a fight scene is very lacking, and Jeff and Lizzie get past every one of these enemies with so much ease that you'd think they're on Tutorial Island.
Awesome. Thanks.
And then everyone just leaves? Jeff and Lizzie get to the dock right as Steve is taking off a plane, by the way. So let me just get this straight. Jeff and Mark hatched this great plan to take control of Steve's pack. So why did they not also take control of everybody else's pack, get rid of the B6 obedience drug, and then give them a dosage big enough on the DARKENFLOXX that they would go after Steve and absolutely rip him apart? Why did they not do that? That would have been so freaking cool. But instead, we get Steve flying himself into a mountain. He just regrets his decisions and flies himself into a mountain. So upon further inspection, it's actually the drug DARKENFLOXX still affecting his system. That's the real reason he flies into the mountain. I really can't decide if that makes it better or worse, but it does make it different. So I thought it was worth mentioning. Jeff and Lizzie ride off into the sunset and credits roll. So that is Spiderhead. When you create a universe and there's these really cool drugs that manipulate people in such interesting ways that we haven't really seen, and then you just do nothing with that. Like, the only real thing they do with these drugs is get Steve to admit that he's the owner of the company and admit that he used a bingo card to name the drugs and admit that the drug that he was actually testing was for obedience. That's the only thing that they did with all these cool different drugs. The little drug testing scenes they did include were definitely the best part of the movie. I still agree that they're the best part of the movie, but also 3 of them are just about people fucking?
Huh. Your loss.
Funny.
And there's only like 5 in the whole movie? It would have been really cool to learn a lot more about these drugs and all the different, you know, potential upsides and downsides to each drug. And then we see the hero use all of those advantages and disadvantages that he's experienced and witnessed to defeat the bad guy of Steve. That is, I guess, my first video about a movie. So yay! It just took a really terrible ending to get me mad enough and passionate enough to actually turn on the camera and start making videos like this. If you enjoyed it, a like would be greatly appreciated. Let me know your thoughts on Spiderhead down in the comments if you have seen it yourself, and subscribe to the channel if you guys want more content like this. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, do the right thing, good vibes only, and never stop creating. Peace.